Hi guys, and welcome to today's Coaching Insider video where I give you a window inside a recent coaching conversation I've had. I will share with you the topic or the problem that the client brought to the coaching session, as well as the tools and strategies that I taught them in order to move closer to the desired result that they're after. Of course, all coaching conversations are completely confidential, so everything shared will be done so anonymously. Let's get into it. So today's topic is overwhelm and knowing where to get started. And this one's a little bit different because I'm using an example from a group coaching session where I spoke to 20 different people and coached them all at the one time. And I'm sure it will not surprise you that the tool I'm about to share with you is very question-based. So we're going to move through 3 different questions which will allow you to gain the information you need in order to reduce overwhelm and know where to get started. So question number 1 is called The One Thing, and I've actually borrowed this from a book called The One Thing, written by Gary Keller and Jay Papalis. So if you're interested, give that one a read. I certainly have not as of yet. I'm not a very good reader, but I might have to in the future. So the question that they ask in that book is, what is the one thing I can do such that by doing makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And my spin-off of that question is, what is the one thing you can focus on that will bring the greatest positive impact to all areas of your life? Okay, so that's the first question, and I'll run you through some examples on that too. So the example I'll give you is from when I was at the peak of a health crisis, and I, felt incredibly overwhelmed and didn't know where to start because I could identify there were so many different things that needed my attention around anxiety and depression and chronic fatigue and the whole multitude of symptoms that came with that. And the one thing that I identified, I didn't know this technique back then, I naturally just sort of used it as a strategy, was to move to China and to live with my dad, which was a huge decision for me at the time. But what I realized is that by making that one decision, a multitude of other choices and plans were able to fall into place. And when I say fall into place, I don't mean it was easy or free-flowing or I knew exactly what to do at every moment, but it meant that I had this one key focus and that everything else was then, drawn into something. It was attached back into a bigger plan. So I was able to feel like everything was simplified, even though it was still incredibly challenging and hard at that time. If I'm to give you an example from the group coaching session that I was running, one of the answers that the lady came up with was to trust herself. So her one thing that if she could focus on would have the greatest positive impact holistically in her life was for her to trust herself. Now, spoiler alert, this strategy or tool is only going to work for you if you're willing to give yourself permission to focus on one thing. Now, a lot of people when I work with them, or clients when I first meet them, they're trying to do so many things well, and the flow-on effect from that is that they're doing none of them well. They're spread really thin. So my personal opinion is that this approach of selecting one thing is brilliant and highly intelligent. Okay, question number 2. Who would I need to be in order to achieve this? So some examples of the person I needed to be in order to make that decision and then achieve it of moving to China was curious. I had to be open-minded. I had to be accepting. I had to be trusting. I definitely had to be patient. So there are a few examples of who I had to be in order to achieve that one thing. With the client that gave the answer of trusting herself, so if she could trust herself, everything in her life would become easier or unnecessary. I imagine, some of the things she would need to be or qualities she would need to draw on and embody would include courage, would include discomfort, a person that's okay with sitting in discomfort, I imagine if she doesn't have the answers as to exactly how to do that, to be someone who trusts themselves, that she might need to be a researcher or an explorer and discover those answers. And after being the researcher and the explorer, she might need to be an experimenter to see what happens. Yeah, and if she's trusting herself, I imagine she'd also need to be a person who is a clear communicator. Yeah, so that in order to connect with herself and hear what's right for her, to then implement that, she'll probably need to have some clear communication with other people as well. The third question here is, who can you model these qualities off? Or who has already achieved success in this area of life that you're looking to achieve success in as well? Because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And when we have a source outside of ourselves, as well as from within ourselves, but outside of ourselves that we can refer to and break down and look at how they've gotten to where they are, that can be incredibly helpful to have in your toolkit as well. Now, it's ideal that this person is not somebody you actually know personally. It might be, but I would suggest if that's the case, you maybe have another person that is someone you don't know as well. The reason I say that is because it can be easier to slip into comparison and judgment mode when it's somebody we know, as opposed to someone who is a very high quality example and leader in the space that you're looking to achieve something. So for myself, when I was recovering, Turia Pitt was an incredible example of this for me. And if you don't know her, Google her. Turia is spelled Turia. And what you can begin to do is learn about that person's story, learn about their personality, learn about their qualities, learn about how they respond to certain situations, what their thinking is. And then you have that information to draw down on when you're feeling challenged. So with Turia, I was able to watch her TED Talk. I was able to watch other interviews online, and she had a book at that time too that I bought and I read. And she now has a large social media presence as well. So I could have gone and looked at, how is it that she shows up? How is it that she creates resilience? Other examples for me in business could be Marie Forleo or Tony Robbins. So there's some examples of what I mean when I say a really high quality example, and someone who's very well established and progressed in not exactly, but a very close model of exactly what you're looking to achieve. The answers that some of the people came up with when I was coaching this strategy in the group included Brene Brown, Michelle Obama. They were two of the common examples that came up. So this can actually be quite a fun little research task where you can inquire and become really curious and interested as to who could these models be for me? Because as you do that, you'll also detect qualities that might not be appropriate, and you'll have to make sure aren't part of who you are in the process of achieving your one thing as well. So that, guys, is today's Coaching Insider video. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to know, what is your one thing that you've identified? And if you have any questions, put them below, or you can also email me at gemma@gemmahanley.com.